am Vandana Nanal. Presently, I am a senior professor at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. I was born in a small town of Dharwad in North Karnataka. I grew up largely, my primary schooling was in a small town, Solapur in Maharashtra. My father worked in post and telegraph departments of Maharashtra, so he had of central government, India, so that's why he had a transferable job. And so we moved from Solapur to Bombay when I was 10 years old. And even though his job changed, I did most of my high schooling in Bombay. So I studied in a vernacular medium, Marathi medium school, in a girls' education till my school finals. I come from a very typical lower middle class family, financially not very well off, though my father had a government job, so there was regular income in the family. And both my parents actually valued education a lot, but they did not have opportunities. So neither of them had studied beyond the schools. So turned out that I was the first graduate in my family. But because my father valued education a lot, and it was kind of his ambition, as well as he supported or he sparked an ambition in us, the children, that is both me and my brother, to actually study further. I remember many incidences where he's telling, it was like, the thing which he would say is that whatever you choose to do, you must do it so well that you couldn't have done it better. And I think this has been one of the really something which has stayed with me, that to know that whether what I have done is complete or not complete, because you have to get this feeling. He was very good in mathematics. He also was very fond of reading. He used to read English literature. He used to typically buy the books in the second-hand book market and read. And so he inculcated these habits of reading in children, as well as he would also give us opportunity of whatever was affordable. For example, the buying books was not an option for us, or even going for those were not the days of the internet either. So the knowledge availability was also limited. But there would be radio programs. I remember sitting with him and listening to the BBC science programs in Hindi. On Tuesday in the night it would come, and he would always remind me, and then we will sit together and listen to some of the stories. He had this habit of reading anything that passes his hand. And I recall one story. He was coming home in the evening from the office, and he had probably eaten the peanuts. So there was this torn page of the book which had a story about Ramanujan number, in which he read the peanuts. So he brought that, and I read that when he came home. He gave that to me for reading. I used to have that paper till quite some time, I think till about 10 years back. So that was the first time I read this story about number 1729 being the smallest number, which is the sum of two cubes. So the reason I say this now is it was like many of these small things through which he was trying to, tell us what it means to get an education is what I think has gone a large part of what has made it to me today in terms of seeking the knowledge, collecting the knowledge. Because I had no idea of what a career in academics would be. But the fact that you want to study something, you want to do science, or if you say that you want to study something on your own, that was all came from many of these snippets, many of these stories one read. Of course, everybody reads about Marie Curie as well as other scientists. The two other persons I think influenced me along the way was, at least the stories of the two persons, was Dr. Anandibai Joshi, about whom I read when I was in my undergraduate, because that's a Marathi novel, Anandi Gopal. So though I read about her life through this book and dramatized life, but that made also a very deep impression. And another story about a woman scientist I read, this was after my PhD, but that was about Lisa Meitner, the scientist who discovered fission. She was a Jew scientist, and she had to leave Germany in the middle of mid 30s, when the things were, the politically the situation was very bad, and she actually had to leave all her science behind, not just the life, and she missed out on Nobel Prize. So when I look at all these things and see how much she had done and how much she missed out, something came back to me that one should count one's blessings. So that was, among the this. So how I got into science, if I think back, as I said, that the interest in the science and maths got, maybe I had somewhat of an intrinsic liking, and which was cultivated to the extent possible by my parents. And another thing my father very, very strongly supported was the independent thinking. So this was always there, that you try to think, you try to figure out what you want to do. If you are in a problem, try to find your own solution and fix it. That was always there. If you got it in, solve it yourself. Got any problem? So that was also there. And then unfortunately, when I was completing my bachelor's degree, he was diagnosed with cancer. And this also made things very, very difficult for us, because he was the only earning member in the family. And it was difficult. So, but I think we also had a lot of friends and well-wishers who kind of helped us in making a certain, through the way, finding our ways through the difficult situations. But what did help me was and it was a kind of a providential opportunity, was the TIFR had a master's course with Pune University. And this course was actually had a rather short life. It ran only for 3 years, and ours was the second batch. But because it offered the master's course with the scholarship, at that point, I was able to take this up. I appeared for the national entrance exam, and I made through it. And because it offered a scholarship, it was possible for me to do this master's course. And that sort of opened the doors for me of the TIFR. And that was a whole new world, because not only there was a lot of science to do, I also could see where the things can go, and that really attracted me. Then I joined for my PhD. After doing the PhD, I went for the postdoctoral fellowship to US. So this in the Argonne National Lab. And this was really, I would think, a very, very nice experience, because for the first time in my life, I was financially settled. And this was a great academic environment. So I learned a lot, and we also had a very good group. So I have a lot of friends. So it was both academically very productive and very healthy atmosphere, which I enjoyed. I must say that my stay in TIFR as a student also was very, very enjoyable. So that kind of, by the time, therefore, when I finished the PhD and postdoc, I did not have any two thoughts on whether or not I should pursue an academic career. I knew that I wanted to stay, and I decided to focus on my work as a scientist. So then I applied for the job, and I was fortunate enough to get a job in TIFR. And then I came back and started working further in the nuclear physics. And this time I also started working in the accelerator physics. So when I came back and then joined as a faculty, I started working in nuclear and accelerator physics. This is a little different, because when you come back as a faculty, you move away from a student to a somewhat decision-making position. And this is where I think this is in some sense a most challenging period as a woman scientist, because I work in the experimental area. It's highly technical, and there are very few women. So it was difficult to establish yourself, to prove your competence all along and work on the things. And and then I have progressed along this line. And now, of course, I have reached a certain seniority. It makes the perception and the interactions become somewhat different. But in the early stages of the careers, as a woman, you do face, particularly in a field where there are very few women, and the jobs are technical because you deal also with people coming from different parts of the society, and all of them have different perceptions. For many of them it can be a difficult situation because they have never encountered a woman who has to take decisions, or they have never had, they have to follow the decisions taken by a woman. So this is part, I mean, the people are nice. It's not that people are necessarily troubling you, but this is something which is a difference, and that gets into the problem. So what science I do? So I look at the exotic properties of the atomic nuclei. We do this by bombarding the nuclei onto each other. And so basically you kind of cause a collision, and then it excites the nuclei, and these excited nuclei then finally decay, disintegrate. And these disintegrated products is what you put together, as I'm looking at this as all jigsaw puzzle, see how you fit, and you see what could have happened. I also look at, like, when you look at atomic nuclei, there are some exist, some combinations exist, some don't exist, some are weak, some are strong. So when these are weakly bound nuclei, what we call, like not very tightly bound, but they can be easily broken. So how their weak binding, how their properties affect the nuclear reactions is what another aspect I look at. And why is this all important? Because this provides an insight into how various elements in the universe have come into the existence, how these nuclei govern our day-to-day lives, how so to understand that what are the basic properties of these nuclei. Technically, we call them many body quantum system. Quantum system because these are tiny, tiny particles which follow the rules of quantum mechanics, and many body because there are many nucleons, many protons, neutrons. Like if I take oxygen, it has 8 protons, 8 neutrons. And I have a passion for developing things. I like detectors, instruments, so I like building things. So when I got involved in the accelerator, the superconducting linear accelerator was being developed here by my senior colleagues. And then when the time I joined, we were setting up all the different experimental stations, different user beam lines. So I was fully involved in that. And now I also do a complete oversee the management and the R&D of the accelerator facility. This is a joint TIFR BRC facility. So I'm the person from TIFR responsible for overseeing this facility. There's another person from BRC together with him as a joint chair. I take care of that. So I'm now working on developing a cryogenic detector. That means detector which will work at very, very low temperature at about 1,000th of a Kelvin, a millikelvin, what we call. And there we have made some sensors indigenously, germanium sensors, which can measure these low temperatures of the order of 20 to 100 millikelvin. That's some of the recent works I have done. See, one of the things which we look at is the nuclear role of nuclei in many processes, like energy production, whether we talk it by fission, that is by reactor breaking nuclei, or by fusing, which people talk about making a tokamaks. Or as I said, how the stars form the elements. If I look at it, many of these things to understand and then synthesize. If I want to make something today, want a particular nucleus, I need to understand how it behaves, and the various properties, various aspects which we study about it tells us what can be made. And the nuclei have a direct application in many things. So not just the nuclei we study, but the technology with which we develop things. For example, the accelerators. The accelerators are used for irradiation of the food, irradiation of various things for medical treatment, medical imaging. Many of the detectors today used for medical imaging, and the algorithms also have come out of our the nuclear physics studies. So the nuclear medicine research is also one of the aspects of the thing. I'm not directly involved in it, but the accelerators physics leads to that. So my main goal, as I said, is to look at the basic properties of nucleus, but that is the first step. That will tell you a bigger picture, that why carbon came into existence, why oxygen came into existence, and how that has led to what nuclei as they are today. Yeah. When I look back, actually, for me, it's very, very difficult to think of my personal life other than the professional life, because it is so mixed. Since yeah, once I joined for my MSc, and then after that, my work has been like very much there, so I can't disentangle the two. But in addition to my father, I even I look back on my education, the few good teachers made a lot of difference. I had a very good science teacher in the school, Vrinda Ranganekar. And then when I was doing my bachelor's degree, undergraduate student, that was the time when TIFR actually also set up this Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education. So Professor Arvind Kumar from TIFR, who was the first founder director of Homi Bhabha Center, used to conduct some lectures, and I had an opportunity to learn some quantum mechanics from him. I also had an opportunity to listen to some of the very noted scientists from TIFR in Nehru Planetarium, the public lectures by them, Professor Narlikar, Professor V.G. Kulkarni, Professor Chitre. So these are the things which were like, in those days, that's what, like, suppose I had to learn something about new discoveries. These were the only source which was there, because today I know that you can find lots of things on Wikipedia, but those days, this was the main thing. And so these lectures further motivated me. So among the teachers, I certainly would say that Sarvin Kumar had a great role in kind of opening up the beauty of the physics to me. And in fact, it was his guidance which led me to apply for the TIFR MSc program, apply and appear for that exam. So that was a turning point. Yeah, if I look back and try to find the milestones now, I certainly think the first breakthrough I would say is that getting into the TIFR MSc Pune University program, because that gave me a bit of confidence, because that was the first national level competitive exam through which I made to. So saying that, okay, it's possible for me to do it. And then, of course, going for the postdoc, because I mean, I spoke earlier about the financial independence, but for me, from the background I came from, that sitting in a plane was an unimaginable dream which we would not have anticipated before. So that I could get the PhD and could do that was something also an achievement. And then certainly getting the job in TIFR has been a very, very fulfilling step. So I joined back TIFR as a faculty in 1998. And roughly from around 2012, that is for past 10 years, I have been overseeing the accelerator facility operations. And last 4 years since 2018, I'm a joint chair. Earlier, I was a faculty in charge. So this is definitely, I would say, is an achievement, because it's a national user facility, which is a facility catering to about 200 plus people, 200 plus users. And yeah, and I have been intimately associated with it. And so whenever the things still work out, it gives me a sense of fulfillment. Challenges. Now, first challenge I want to say is not necessarily related to being a woman, but the first challenge which I faced when I stepped out of the house for my master's was the language. I studied in a Marathi medium. Even though I was writing papers for my bachelor's in English, I could not speak English. And here I was trying to do when I joined for the master's, where everybody who else had come, they were all very good, of course, very good. And many of them are today also very successful physicists. But I just could not talk fluently the English. So this was again something which I had to overcome. And it was difficult, because you are completely on your own and trying to do the thing which was a challenge. As a woman, I faced more in twofold. At home, my father was always very supportive, but he passed away when I was just completing my master's. And when I joined for PhD, he was not there. But following an unconventional path, right? Trying to go for the higher studies and not getting married. So this was something which was, I mean, even today it is a bit difficult to fit in the social structure. So it was even more difficult about 2 decades back. So that was another challenge which had to come. And Yes, it was a choice which I made to focus on the career. So that's the thing. So that's where I said that then I don't have much of the personal life outside my work. So that is a mix. So that was a choice. It was a conscious choice, and I don't regret it. But it was a choice. It would have been in an ideal world, one shouldn't have had to make the choice. But when I came back as a faculty, then one of the things which I found was that, I mean, if you are outspoken, if you are independent, it is difficult for people around you to accept it. People, so anything which you are trying to do little beyond convention, then it's something that it gets noticed. And then another problem is that uh, you are a part of the committees, you are a part of many things, but the opinions, the space, or the what I would say, the intellectual space, your opinion in the discussion, how much weight is always given. You need to fight for all these things, argue for it, and when you pick the fights, it looks, each issue looked by itself looks too trivial, and then it looks like that you are making, trying to make issues, trying to make something small. But maybe you also become oversensitive, I do not know, but it all these perspectives come across. Yeah, and so one of the things I feel that as a result what has happened is that I have become a rather aggressive person. This is one thing I would have liked to avoid, that to have liked to be nice, but yeah, I it just, probably I got the sense that I am not heard, so I had to talk it even more loudly. So one just goes on in that. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. See, and what happens is that any small mistake you make gets amplified, because if you have given a certain admin responsibility, you make a mistake, it gets generalized and saying not capable. If a small I mean this I feel even today, even with, because you always get a feeling that you are being looked at through the lens. Now it's not something which you can easily prove, like, even if, I mean, this is where the gender related issues are not so easy always to prove it, but it is there, because it's like you sense in the air, sometimes things come in, like and there have been instances where you kind of feel like, I was told, okay, because some conference is being discussed, menu is being discussed, she is a woman, we should ask her opinion. I mean, everybody eats the food, and I, in fact, I'm not at all fond of cooking, because particularly because it was always in the childhood said that, yeah, as a girl I have to do something, and I had sort of put in kind of rebellion attitude towards it and saying I'm not going to do it. But I'm just giving that as an example, because like this, there are many things which come in your way, and you have to keep proving it. And so even if you have a temper, or you have uh, any personal traits in a woman get amplified much more than the man. Yeah, when I got my postdoc position and I was to go alone to abroad, I sorely missed my father. That was my first reaction. But yeah, my mother was not happy. She said that you want to study, you want to do this, fine, I let you do PhD, because it was also your father's wish. But he had told me that if she wants to go abroad, let her get married. And so she was very strongly feeling that I should get married. And the thing is, it is very difficult to fight with your family. That becomes difficult. And fortunately, I should say that I didn't have to do it, because even though there are discussions, my younger brother, he was studying in IIT by then, and he did talk to my mother. He also told her that it is important that if I'm doing PhD, that I should do postdoc. And finally, my mother reluctantly permitted me, because perhaps probably she knew that I will anyway. I would not stop. But anyway, it was reluctant. But this has been hard for her, and I can understand the social stigma or the things which she had had to face and what she felt as a mother of the unmarried daughter. So this I can understand in the now when I look back, maybe after 2 decades. Yeah, the meaning of it. It's very difficult to quantify because science is actually a great source of enjoyment. It's a creativity, originality, and it gives you a sense of fulfillment. So if you come to a lab and even if something which is working every day breaks down, you fix it, you feel good that you have fixed something and come back. So that kind of a thing is there. Yeah, I mean, I have got worked hard. And I have some things to show for my work. Like there are a lot of publications, a lot of things which you do. But I think to me, the success is the feeling of contentment, which I have contentment. That if I feel contented that I feel content that I have achieved something, I've done something good. That's my main for it. And till the thing works to my satisfaction, it haunts me. And I have so that is what I would say, that if I have not completed that, it's a failure. So perseverance is a one quality which if anyone also asks me, I would say I have it. And maybe it's genetic, maybe my father sort of put the flame to it, but I mean he inculcated in it. But yeah, I think both my parents have perseverance. I mean, even when now, when I look at my mother who's 85 in certain things which she does, it's really amazing. But yeah, so what I feel more happy today about is that, especially in the last few years, looking back at thing, I think if I've been able to make a difference to the life of a few young women, that's something which I am very happy about. When my father passed away, I was just finishing my third semester of masters. I had to still one more semester to go and so on. And the life had completely fallen apart because he was the only earning member in the family. We were living in quarters, so everything was there. But in his last few days, there were so many of his colleagues, friends who came to give the well wishes. And even after his death, so many people helped us with the fact that they were there to help us. I think kind of reaffirmed the belief that my father may not have left any estate behind, but he left a big platform for us to go. And that's one thing, that the money is not something which I should crave for. That value came from there. And I also recall that my father, with whatever limited means we had, always used to help others who needed, and particularly when it came to education and so on. So that's something which has stayed with with us siblings, with us children also, that it doesn't matter if you don't. Of course, it's easier for us to help now than that, but yeah. Okay, so of course, as a scientist, my work is mainly in the lab, which is there. So, but when I just joined back as a faculty, I was called for one of the science exhibitions, and I was finding it very hard to go. So I tried to refuse the invitation. At that time, one of my senior colleagues told me, "You should go because it's in a school and the students need to see that there is a woman scientist." And these words actually went very deep into my heart because I realized that yes, there is a need to do it. And I have seen a few women scientists senior who are there as a also in the field, but people should know it is there. So, and I should try and promote the create interest among the women. So this is one aspect. So the science outreach has been one of my passions which I do. So whenever I get invitation from school or college, I never refused. I try really not to refuse, even if it's in a remote corner, unless it's really something which is beyond doable. In the last few years, I have been working as a General Secretary of Indian Physics Association. I was involved in the gender group of Gender in Physics working group of IPA, and we also do a lot of activities as a part of that. And especially in the pandemic, since we could do an online activities, I did make an effort to reach out to very remote places in India, like Northeast or even the central universities, which are at remote places, because when you try to do physical lectures, it is constrained by many other things, whereas we could, through online, we can do that. So these are the parts which I am playing a role, and these are close to my heart also. The TIFR has started a summer program for women physicists, MSc first year women students, to acquaint them of the possible physics careers. And there is also a very significant mentoring part in that. And I did get involved in it. And one thing I must say, that actually interaction with these students has slightly given me the motivation to talk about my journey, because I'm a very private person. I do not like to talk about many of these things, and I also will not be able to talk about personal things very coherently. And but when I was talking to some of these girls, I realized that some problems which I have faced, if they could at least correlate to it, and said, if I can do it, I'm sure everybody can. The first lesson is the very important to raise your aspirations. The perseverance is very, very important, because no matter what field you do, unless you pursue till the end, till you are satisfied, it's not your own satisfaction, of course, is very important. And as I said, when I look at the stories of some of the other people, I feel that whenever I feel low, I would look at it and say that count your blessings. That there are many. It is not something which is there. This is again also something which I think my parents always kind of hammered into us. If you are going on a bicycle, don't look at a person going in a car, but look at a person who's walking. So count your blessings. Yeah, because the hard work and the perseverance, there is no shortcut. But you also should be firm and assertive if you want to really make the thing, make it to the top, or make it through the next stage. Because unless you are assertive, you will kind of get pushed around, or you will get ignored. So that's something that needs to change. So that is for the women. But I think and the family support is very, very important. And I would, therefore, when I talk about it, I not only to the girls, I tell to all the boys, make sure that your friends, your sisters, you support, because that is, see, you don't want to be when you are taking up the challenges in the outside world, you don't want to be having issues of convincing to your parents and people whom you are close, because you feel more difficult to hurt the people you love than the outside challenges. It's easy to deal with than the dealing at home. So that's the thing I would feel. But I think the other major thing is that there are a lot of implicit biases which are there at workplaces, which need to improve. So there are to be both, not just, the sexual harassment at least gets talked about. It's not easy to prove, but it is at least is easy for somebody to see the gender biases which make the academic atmosphere unhealthy. These are even opaque, and a lot more needs to be done to make an academically healthy workspace. Today, if I look back at myself when I was 20, let's say when I was finishing my master's, and with my experience today, and I would say that need a lot of patience and a lot of strength. Don't get disheartened, and try to react less, because your every reaction will be counted as your every mistake. If I have to live my life all over again, I still would like to be a scientist. I would definitely like to be a scientist, but I think I would perhaps would work such that I will be a less aggressive person. I would like to be myself a little less aggressive person, because I definitely think that's something is one thing which I would perhaps like to avoid. Mm. Yeah, the things have been changing, and in the last 2 years, it has been even bigger change, which has brought into our life. So, as I said, the inclusiveness has to be an important part, and the because the tapping on the hidden strengths, it's something which we have to take into account in yeah, so inclusiveness is important, and I would like to yeah, the thing which I also feel is that one to keep yourself, when you do something continuously in the science, one thing is it keeps you young, and to keep yourself young is that you need to do new things. So for me, it's also about changing goalposts, that is changing the problems which I work on, so that kind of keeps you at the sort of a younger age, mentally young, and you keep trying out new things. uh, I really hope that I mean, I have enjoyed every step that I have taken in the science, and I have worked for many things, and some things are completed, some are in progress. So I have started an experiment looking for the very, very rare decay process. So as a science, I would say that's something I would like to see, that experiment bearing the fruit. In a more wider sense, since I have also worked for the gender issues with a passion, I really hope that in the coming decade, the physics profession in India makes really a quantum jump, and we see a much more equity. Not, I'm not just saying an equality, an equity in the profession, in terms of not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of overall opportunities and the growth. Because definitely the institutes like TIFR, the elite institutions, the AEDS institutions have far fewer women. So I hope the various government policies or various other policies, actually some things get into the action, and that is one part. And I do think that today, in principle, there are many opportunities, and I hope that the younger women today take do seek out the things and overcome the required challenges to go there, because that's the networking and mentoring both are improving today, and I hope that will help them to come forward. Yeah, what keeps me going, what energizes what I want to do? It's a difficult question to answer, because there are times when one goes through a lot of up and down, and you feel that is it worth, you try to prove yourself again and again. But I really, really love what I do in the lab, and I think so at the end of the day, I can never think of the thing that I will not be doing this. And then I like talking to the students. When I do meet some women students somewhere saying struggling, and then somebody says that talking to me just help them, relax them, these are the things which come back to giving you think that okay, it's important that you keep doing what you do.